you, Hasapriya Prabhu, to our evening show here at the Theistic Media Studios in Gupta Govardhan. And we thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. I feel honored to be here. Shri Giriraj, Govardhan, with all the devotees, Goswami Maharaj. It's a very enlivening part of my trip each year to come also to Chiang Mai and visit the devotees.
We always wish you'd stay a bit longer. Maybe next time you'll give us more time. But we've got you tonight on camera, and we'd like you to share your story, your experiences, and your time spent with Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and then coming to Srila Sridhar Maharaj and serving Srila Govinda Maharaj, and presently about your service life. Sripad Hasapriya Prabhu is our temple president in SoCal, California, and is day and night busy serving the ashram and developing the deity's temple. So we'd like to hear all about this. So please share with us.
So way back in 1972, I received a Back to Godhead magazine and started reading about Krishna consciousness. And from that, I was able to also get a Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita as it is, and started reading about spiritual life. And before that, in America, in the 60s, there was the beginning of the hippie movement, Woodstock, drugs, sex, rock and roll. It was all beginning to be its peak. And so that was my life before then. But I always felt some emptiness. Something wasn't quite there. And so I looked, at that time there was books on yoga, there was different yogis who had visited the United States. But by Gurudev's mercy, I came across Srila Prabhupada's book, Bhagavad Gita. And I read that, and I thought, I had so many questions beforehand, and I thought, oh, this book has answered every question I had, and all the questions that I couldn't think of were answered. And so it was a very profound experience for me to read the Bhagavad Gita and read Srila Prabhupada's teachings, his purports, and to see in those writings the character of Srila Prabhupada, his faith in Krishna, and his understanding of so many subjects that were way beyond my comprehension. And I remember thinking about Srila Prabhupada's description of Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, how Krishna was a blue boy playing in Vrindavan. And to me, that was like the most foreign concept of God. I just never had any experience like that before. But I thought, oh, he's written this book and everything in here makes so much sense. Krishna being blue must be correct. And so that was like the real beginning of my involvement with Krishna consciousness. And then by some association with some devotees, we started chanting our rounds every day, following the principles. And then I was living in the Santa Cruz Mountains as a hippie up in the mountains. And a devotee came by on traveling Sankirtan. At that time, devotees would travel around the United States in vans, and whenever they had some prospect of a place to go to preach, they would go. And so Satsvarup Maharaj was traveling with some brahmacharis, and he stopped in my town that I lived in. We went to his program, and then he said, well, why don't you come back to Los Angeles? You know, we're going to LA to the temple tonight, and, you know, we'll give you a ride, and, you know, then if you want to come back, you can just come back the next day. So I thought, yeah, sure. You know, I didn't have really any commitment to anything in life, and I did that. And after a few days in the Los Angeles temple and being with the devotees and attending the programs, I thought, oh, if I'm serious about spiritual life, this is where I should be. Not, you know, living in the mountains by myself in a cabin, but with people who know what spiritual life is. And, you know, I could learn something from them. So then I decided to stay, and then that was, my feeling was, oh, I'll stay for a couple of years. I'll give this a try for a couple of years. But a couple of years came and went. I forgot all about that commitment I made in my mind, and I just continued to stay. And of course, at that time, Srila Prabhupada would come to Los Angeles on a regular basis, and he would take a morning walk every morning out to Venice Beach. And also at that time, Swarup Damodar Maharaj was studying in San Diego for his PhD. And so oftentimes he would drive up to Los Angeles and be there on the morning walks. And it was an amazing chemistry, dynamics between Srila Prabhupada and Swarup Damodar Maharaj, because Swarup Damodar Maharaj would play the devil's advocate and give Srila Prabhupada all the atheistic arguments in science. And Srila Prabhupada would just tear him down, tear him to pieces. You know, it was like they were playing a game. They both enjoyed their roles, and it was very, very wonderful to see. And of course, you know, those topics were like way beyond anything I could understand. I mean, when they would talk about things, they would make sense, but I couldn't retain it afterwards. If you asked me the next day what they talked about, I probably wouldn't be able to repeat any of it. But all of it, Srila Prabhupada, his dynamic personality, his preaching, his utter faith in Krishna consciousness. You know, it's said that just a moment's association with a pure devotee can save us. And that I felt with Srila Prabhupada, that just a moment being in his presence was changing me, drawing me into a different realm, into a different life. And it was difficult. It's always difficult, especially when we're brand new in Krishna consciousness. But if you stick with it, the rewards are so unbelievable. And a lot of times we can't perceive what is going on, what purification is taking place with us, within us. But something is happening, and we have faith in the words of our Guru Dev, that by following this practice, by associating with the devotees, by practicing devotional service in the association with devotees, then gradually we'll be pulled to a higher plane. And so then for many years I was in Los Angeles Temple. We had a big Sankirtan party. 25 devotees would go out every day selling Srila Prabhupada's books. The Los Angeles airport, we legalized that. Then I was able to go around to other cities with that success from the Los Angeles airport legally. We were able to open up Las Vegas airport, Salt Lake City airport, eventually San Francisco airport opened. And it was like the beginning of an era of mass book distribution that was taking place. And Los Angeles was like the center of that, like atomic bomb that was going off. And also at that time, Srila Prabhupada came and spent maybe, I don't know, 6 months a year in Los Angeles and finished the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And before that, Rameshwar Maharaj was in charge of the book distribution, the BBT, and he became inspired, and he went to Srila Prabhupada and asked Srila Prabhupada, please finish the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And Prabhupada said, why should I write more books? The books that I've already written are sitting in the warehouse. And Rameshwar took that as a challenge. And he said, you know, if you translate the books, I'll print them and I'll sell them. And so that was like, all of a sudden, this whirlpool of activity began in Los Angeles. And devotees came in from New York and from artists from different places around the world. And they restructured the whole printing environment and the production and it was such a dynamic time. It was like, you know, electricity in the air type of thing. And sure enough, every volume of Chaitanya Charitamrita that was published, I think they printed maybe 5,000 or 10,000 of each volume. As soon as it came out, Rameshwar had this whole plan, had the whole mission mobilized to sell every one of them. And every one of them got sold. You had to like hold on to a copy if you wanted one because somebody would grab it and sell it. And that was like, I don't know, 27 volumes in Chaitanya Charitamrita. And it was just, you know, a surrealistic experience. Not anything that, you know, we can imagine on the mundane level. Something was happening. Later on, we heard from Srila Sridhar Maharaj that he described how Srila Prabhupada was Shaktivesh avatar of Lord Nityananda. And it made so much sense to us. Of course he was, you know, that he could inundate the whole world with these books and inspire so many people to join. And people were joining in all of our centers around the world. And this went on for years. Sometimes 1 million Bhagavad Gita, 1 million Back to Godhead magazines would be published and sold in 1 month. 1 million copies in 1 month. And it was just many devotees who were going out selling books. I talk to them now and they think back, how could I do that? You know, it was beyond our abilities, but somehow or other, from Srila Prabhupada's desire, from his inspiration, that power came through to the devotees. And even a new devotee would be going out selling so many books every day. So it was a very, very unbelievable time in the birth of Krishna consciousness in the West. This was was the explosion that reverberated all around the world and came back to India to have an effect on India. And so many devotees took initiation, and in Sokel we're very blessed by the fact that there's so many older God brothers and God sisters, some who are disciples of Srila Prabhupada, disciples of Srila Sridhar Maharaj, course, disciples of Srila Govinda Maharaj, now disciples of Srila Janardhan Maharaj and Srila Charya Maharaj. And it's a very natural environment for all of these disciples of different gurus to mix. It's not, there isn't this camp, you know, Prabhupada's camp, Srila Sridhar Maharaj's camp, Govinda. It isn't like that at all. There's no indication or feeling or of any difference. It's like a multi-generational family. When a multi-generational family, they all live together. The grandparents are living there. The sons and daughters of the grandparents, then the children, the grandchildren, cousins and the cousin brothers and whatever. And there's, you know, a natural affection and natural relationships. And so we see that in our ashram in Soquel, in the community in Soquel, in Santa Cruz and San Jose, that there's this natural association and mixing of devotees who may be initiated. We don't even know sometimes who they're initiated by, because it really isn't something we ask. It's just something that happens, it flows naturally. Srila Govinda Maharaj came to California. He traveled there 10 times during his world tours. The first time was in 1992, came, and we were in the 17th Street temple where Brajamohini and Jayanta Krishna live now. And that was our temple, and it was a big community already at that time, but kind of scattered, not very organized. And Srila Govinda Maharaj saw that and asked, try to find some property that's halfway between Santa Cruz and San Jose and buy that property. And so Udamanya Prabhu was in charge, then he was the president, and he organized a collecting program, and devotees went out and collected. And you know, things don't really go smooth. There's always hiccups along the way. And we found this one property, and it meet Govinda Maharaj's criteria. It was halfway between Santa Cruz and Soquel, but I mean, has Santa Cruz and San Jose. But then when Govinda Maharaj saw it, he said, "What? This is like where Ram was banished into the forest. There's all these tall redwood trees. It was all dark and shady, and so like that, you know, there was some up and down in this rasa of finding the Soquel ashram. But once the property that we ended up getting was located, and we saw Srila Prabhupada, showed it to Srila Govinda Maharaj, he said immediately, as we drove him up in the car to see it, he said, "There's no reason even to get out of the car. Just buy this, get this property." He was completely convinced by just seeing it once that this was the property. And so by his mercy, by the hard work of so many devotees, and we were able to get that property. And that was in 1993, so 21 years ago. And then, as I said, through Srila Govinda Maharaj repeatedly came during his world tours to the ashram, stayed there. And one time he came, he was always talking about coming for a long time, because he would come for maybe a month. His world tours were like 10 or 15 countries on a tour. It was like a heavy, heavy schedule. You know, Venezuela, Mexico, Brazil, this place. It wasn't like just getting on the plane, going to one place, staying there, coming back to India. It wasn't like that at all. It was many, many stops. And so, he always would say how he would like to come to Sokel for 6 months at a time. And we thought, oh, wow, that would be so wonderful. And so then in 2004, he did that. He came, and he was scheduled to be there for 6 months. And when he arrived, and after he settled in, I was speaking with Srila Govinda Maharaj, and I said, oh, Maharaj, this is like a dream come true for us that you're going to be here for 6 months. And then he said, it's my dream come true also, that I can be here for 6 months. It was so sweet. And that was Srila Govinda Maharaj's affection that he gave freely throughout the world. And that affection attracted all of us to him. And, he's written in Revealed Truth that, Krishna consciousness is more heart than intellect. And Srila Govinda Maharaj was living proof of that heartfelt connection that he had with each devotee. And whether it was a little child, whether it was an older person, whether it was his disciple, Prabhupada's disciple, it didn't matter. There was that connection that we all felt and inspired us to try to be better. And I think that is the wealth that Srila Govinda Maharaj distributed. He inspired us to try to be better in our devotional life. And of course we failed. I failed over and over, but he never gave up, and he kept on encouraging us and showering us with affection. And it's a very powerful thing, affection. The most powerful thing. And Krishna consciousness, life is hard. We've all had difficult experiences in our life, mundane experiences, difficult experiences in devotional activities, and it's hard. But when we have that affection that is coming to us from a senior Vaishnava or from a peer, then it gives us some more hope and some relief, and helps us move forward. It's a very important thing that we help one another in our Krishna consciousness. We know that everything is based on faith in Krishna consciousness, that faith is the foundation of spiritual life. But our faith may be very shaky. And if somebody just looks at us wrong, we may, want to start crying, think, oh my God, I've disturbed the devotees. My life is over. But that faith is, it's enhanced by the affectionate dealings that we have with one another. And this is a very, very important part of our life. What we're trying to do is change. And isn't that the hardest thing for all of us, to change? We may have some consciousness of, trying to enjoy. We think we know what's best for us. And trying to change our mentality and change our habits and change the way we live and what we eat and what time we get up in the morning and all of those things. It's very, very difficult what we're trying to do. And so we all need help, and we can help one another. And we are one big family in Krishna consciousness. And also, as we help others, then maybe today we're giving inspiration to somebody, and then tomorrow we're down in the dumps. And that same person is turning around giving us inspiration. And it's like that. But our service life is it gives us sukriti, it gives us some good fortune, eternal good fortune. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in his writings, talked about, does bhakti come to us by chance? You know, is it just haphazard that somebody gets bhakti? And he said, no, it's by sukriti. It's driven by sukriti. And so what is sukriti? Sukriti is some good fortune that comes to us from service in the association of devotees. And so here we're offering these beautiful flowers to Sri Giriraj, to Sri Gurudev. We're offering incense. We're chanting their holy names. We're circumambulating them. We're trying to offer some service. We're serving the Vaishnavas, whether we're cooking or ironing clothes or building bathrooms, whatever we're doing, or trying to serve the Vaishnavas. Some sukriti is coming to us as a result of that. That sukriti is helping our faith develop. So what is the most important thing? The most important thing is service. Service in the association of devotees. Because in the association of devotees, it's guided service. Service is not just we mentally speculate on what we should do that would be good for us, but it has to be guided. So that service in the very beginning may even be unknowing service. We go out on Sankirtan, collecting some money, we give somebody some prasadam, they have no idea what benefit they're getting. Agyana sukriti, unknowing good fortune. But gradually then we learn what it is, and it drives us in our devotional life. So I feel that, you know, my life has been blessed by the association of Srila Prabhupada, the association of Srila Govinda Maharaj, the teachings of Srila Sridhar Maharaj that we first heard from Goswami Maharaj in his books that he published, and by all of the devotees who have associated with them those great personalities, and who have captured a little bit of that magic that they have, and are now distributing that and giving that freely to us.
Question came in from Kunti Priya. She's asking, how did the revealing conception vision of His Divine Mercy, Srila Sridhar Maharaj, influence your understanding of God?
So, Srila Prabhupada left this world in 1977. And we were totally unprepared for that. This was, for us, Srila Prabhupada was everything. I mean, he taught us how to bathe, he taught us how to eat, he taught us everything about Krishna consciousness. You know, it was, everybody was always saying, well, Prabhupada says, well, Prabhupada says. You know, that was our guide, that was our direction. And then he left in 1977. And we, of course, were devastated and lost. This is, you know, such a traumatic experience for any disciple when the spiritual master leaves this plane. Because there's that heart connection. And so I was lost. I didn't know where to turn in Krishna consciousness. And it was a very, very a period of my life that was very sad, and I was very undirected, didn't know which way to go. And then, by Goswami Maharaj's mercy, he published Shri Guru in His Grace by Srila Sridhar Maharaj. And when I read that book and started to understand, because Srila Sridhar Maharaj explained so many things about the Guru and about the Guru's departure and about the disciple and what tests the disciple would go through after the departure of the spiritual master. And what was a spiritual master, and what were the qualities of the spiritual master. And these were, you know, questions that were, you know, not really formulated in my mind, but, you know, kind of like in a, they were there swimming around I was in a confused state. And those answers that he gave were like, saved my life. They gave me hope in Krishna consciousness, gave me hope that that Gurudev could be manifested in another form, that Guru was plural, not singular. And Srila Sridhar Maharaj is such a scholar, and he explained everything in such a scholarly way and in such a heartfelt way also, that it changed my life. And at that moment, my wife and I thought, we have to connect with this mission. And so we moved to San Jose to be with Goswami Maharaj and the devotees there. And then later, through that, living in San Jose, then Srila Govinda Maharaj came, and we had his association. And again, we felt our life was saved, again, by Srila Govinda Maharaj. And I remember, you know, for us, you know, we didn't know so much about Krishna consciousness. We didn't know so much about Guru. We read Srila Prabhupada's books, his purports, but, you know, there's so much to know, so much to learn. And so when Srila Govinda Maharaj first came to California in 1992, then, you know, I was with the devotees there, helping to arrange his itinerary and his speaking engagements, and so we had a speaking engagement at Loudon Nelson Center in Santa Cruz. And you know, at that time there was still some hesitancy in my heart towards Srila Govinda Maharaj, because I couldn't imagine somebody replacing Srila Prabhupada in my heart. Little did I know that it wasn't a matter of replacing, it was expanding my heart to feel the mercy of also Srila Govinda Maharaj. But Srila Govinda Maharaj, he gave this lecture at Loudon Nelson Center. And in the audience were many disciples of Srila Prabhupada. And he spoke about Srila Prabhupada. And of course we know that Srila Govinda Maharaj had extensive association with Srila Prabhupada, lived with him for many years, studied Bhagavad Gita under him, was his first Back to Godhead magazine distributor in Calcutta, had so much association with Srila Prabhupada through Srila Sridhar Maharaj and himself. And so when he gave this lecture, he talked about Srila Prabhupada. And he talked about Srila Prabhupada coming to the West and how he blasted a tunnel through the mountain of ego in the West. And now we, meaning himself, we're easily walking through that tunnel to come to the West. And he went on to praise Srila Prabhupada. And I felt in my heart, oh, he knows Srila Prabhupada more than I know Srila Prabhupada. His realization, his praise, his respect for Srila Prabhupada is way beyond mine. And in that moment, my heart was captured by Srila Govinda Maharaj.
Wasn't it at that event he jumped off the stage and danced with all the devotees?
Had a big kirtan, and it became more and more ecstatic. And there was a stage maybe, 3 feet high off the ground. And Srila Govinda Maharaj and the other devotees, Sagar Maharaj and others were on the stage. They were all seated there. And then Govinda Maharaj leaped up and started standing and dancing on the stage. And, wave after wave of ecstasy went through the kirtan. And everybody was standing up, dancing. And then miraculously, Govinda Maharaj leaped off the stage into the audience of devotees. And, it was, no one thought, that he's going to hurt himself or anything like that. It was just, a wave of ecstasy in the kirtan. It was unbelievable, unbelievable. Yeah, Srila Govinda Maharaj conquered Santa Cruz that night.
So present day in the Sri Chaitanya Saraswat Seva Ashram Sokel, you have big plans. And we have something going on there and deities, but what's happening? What are these big plans?
So before we purchased the ashram, the land in Sokel, there was some difficulty that we knew with that property. It was zoned as a single family residence. And we had some discussion with Srila Govinda Maharaj about it. And he went around the room. There was maybe 5 or 6 of us in the room, and he asked each one of us our opinion. What do we think? What are the pros and cons of getting this property, because of these problems? And then what are the advantages? And so then, all of this was discussed. And then the final decision was by Srila Govinda Maharaj, get the property. And so, in spite of that difficulty, we got the property. But that difficulty hung over our head for many, many years. And it escalated because obviously we don't use it as a single family residence. It's an ashram, it's a temple. Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari is installed there. And many devotees live there. Many, many devotees visit there. When Govinda Maharaj would come, sometimes there'd be 100 devotees staying at the ashram. It was, We were just always building beds. Whenever we heard Govinda Maharaj was coming, we would just start building beds again to accommodate all the guests. And so this problem escalated over the years, and it became a legal problem. It became a problem with our neighbors, and so we hired lawyers, we hired consultants, we hired professionals to help us resolve this issue. And basically, what the conclusion by all of these experts was, and by the county planning department, was that we needed to change the zoning, change the use, to reflect what our real use was. Kirtan hall, commercial kitchen, dormitory where the devotees were living, those things. And so what we were doing, what we were using the property for, we had to legalize that use. And so in California, California is notorious for being very restrictive in building requirements. First of all, it's earthquake areas. And so there are very stringent rules for construction to protect against earthquakes. And then there's flooding, and there's rules against, for the foundations to, in case the mud comes down the hill, the building will still stay there. And so many things. And then, of course, just practical things, a septic system that's going to accommodate so many people using it, a water storage that will accommodate so many people, fire prevention, driveways big enough so the fire trucks can come in. And so all of these rules and everything. So pretty much the planning department said, you have to come up with a master plan on what you want to do with that property. Based on that master plan, we'll approve that. But we're not going to approve it piecemeal. We're not going to say, fix this building, and then we'll fix that building. We want to see the whole plan. You can do the construction in stages, but we want to see the whole plan. So, I discussed this situation with Srila Govinda Maharaj many times, and we started drawing plans, and Srila Govinda Maharaj brought me to some of his friends who were architects in Calcutta, and they drew these beautiful plans for a 3-story mandir in kind of a Shiva temple style. And then we made like a little model out of that, and we showed it to the county, and then they said, no, it can't be this high, you have height restrictions. So then we hired some professionals to guide us on our plans so that we could get the plans right. And then we would design something, and then we would have our consultant bring it to the county. Is this what, within your parameters? Okay, then if they had some objections, then we would modify it. So this went on for years, these changes, because we didn't really have a lot of money to hire all the professionals, the engineers, civil engineers, soil engineers, architects, septic engineers, every engineer you can think of. So we kind of, did it as we could get enough money. Some generous donations came in. We were able to do some of the work. Then we ran out of money. We had to stop working. So then this last year, some inspiration came to us that now was the time to do it. We had been cultivating our neighbors for many years. Our neighbors are very favorable to our ashram. They say things to us like, you're the best neighbors anybody could ever have. We're like astonished. One neighbor said, He real nice guy. His name was Robert. He said, I come home after working all day. I sit on my porch. I have a glass of wine, and I hear the chanting, and I think, how lucky I am to live here. So like that, we have some very, very pious neighbors, and we've made friends with them, and we bring them cookies and flowers and fruit from our orchard, and like that. And it's been a very positive development. And then politically in Santa Cruz, there's so many political restrictions because it's such a beautiful place. Everybody wants to live there. But the people who live there don't want any more people living there. So there's this this opposition, and so, but through the years we've been able to cultivate some politicians, and now the man who's the supervisor for our district, his wife used to eat at Gurunga's restaurant when Sanati and Srila had that restaurant, and they have fond memories of Gurunga's restaurant, and so we have some very positive relationship now with them. So then we felt this was the time that we have to move on this, and so we started a fundraising campaign to raise enough money to finish these plans and get the permission and get the zoning changed. We started that campaign on Lord Nityananda's appearance day in September of this year, and it runs through Srila Govinda Maharaj's appearance day, December 8th. And our goal was to raise $100,000 in that time to have enough money to finish this phase. And so far to date, by the generosity of the devotees, by the inspiration of Gurudev in their heart, over $60,000 has come in. And so we're close. We're feeling very enthusiastic that that we can accomplish this goal by the mercy of the devotees, by Srila Govinda Maharaj's backing. And do we have that picture that can be shown, or is that? Yes?
Yeah, she's going to try.
Okay, we're going to try to show a picture. And we built a model, a 3D model of our plans. We had an architect in Navadvip help us with these plans, the same architect who built Srila Govinda Maharaj's Samadhi Mandir. He built that big guest house that's not the one by Govinda Kund, but the one behind it. So he helped us with these plans. And then we converted them into a 3D model showing all of the buildings and the guest houses, and so this is our prayer that we can serve Srila Govinda Maharaj's desire to spread Sukriti, that he went all over the world spreading Sukriti and established ashrams and centers everywhere, and for this purpose, to give all of us some opportunity to serve, to do some service in the association of devotees. And so this is our prayer that we can manifest this project, this development project, to expand the facilities, to serve the Vaishnavas, and give facility for devotees who come from all over the world to visit us in Sokel, to give facilities for them to stay, whether they stay for one night or 1 month or their lifetime, whatever. But we're always embarrassed by the the very austere conditions and facilities that we have there. And we want to serve the devotees in a proper way. And so we're hoping that this, that we can be instruments of Srila Govinda Maharaj's desire to manifest this ashram, this new and developed Seva ashram.
Any requests from the devotee community all over the world?
Excuse me?
Any request, any petition you'd like to?
You know, we have to be nice. We have to be nice. This is such an important part of our life. We live together. We live in this close environment. And you know, Trinada pisa nichena, Torora pisa isnana, manina manadena kirtaniya sadahari. That to be humble, to be tolerant, to offer respect without expecting any respect in return. This is the formula for living together in an ashram. It's a theme that Srila Govinda Maharaj, in every lecture, practically, I can think of that I've ever heard him speak, that theme has come out. And really it means being nice to one another. Being tolerant, you know. Some days I might be off and, you know, please tolerate me. And then it turns around the next day, someone else is off. And then we have to be respectful. And we're in this together. This is not an isolated life that we live. We live in the community of devotees. And this is our wealth, is this community of devotees. They're giving us strength. They're propping us up when we're weak, and giving us inspiration and giving us service. So that, you know, I think is something that we, every day, we can try to practice. Be nice to one another.
Thank you very much, Hasupriya Prabhu.
Jai. Jai Gurudev.